Just had probably one of the heaviest, toughest conversations I've ever had here on Unfiltered with Dean Clarkson, a survivor of domestic violence. I mean, it's such an important message to tell. It's such an important story to talk about.
You know, I guess as I got older, I realised that the more you sweep under the carpet, eventually you trip up. But I just lived in this fear that something was going to happen.
So Dean is the founder of Wana, the first men's refuge in the country. You know, when you hear Dean's story, I mean, similar to mine, you know, you see these people, they got every reason in the world in terms of what they've been through to shut the world away and you know, not want to help anyone. But he's just got such a big heart and a willingness to serve and help others. And, you know, a really amazing man.
I was on the board of a women's refuge as well at the same time in Mangere, going through all of this, trying to keep our wahine safe. But in my own world, I was trying to keep myself safe.
You know, I'll say it now that there needs to be a trigger warning on this, but it is a conversation that must be heard. So like, comment, share. I hope this helps and understand that, you know, you can get through it and we see you. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. The story must be heard. Dean Clarkson, enjoy. Unfiltered is produced by the team at Fanaticals and we are part of the Acast network. Dean Clarkson, my brother, thank you so much for joining me, bro.
It's good to be here, brother. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you, and you brought us in these this pounamu to hold on to. So what's the theory behind it? What's this?
So everywhere, we're interconnected always, you know, through our kōrero, but it's that we all put our mauri into that, you know, our wairua and stuff. And so by holding it, no matter where we are in life, it's big enough and bigger to take it than what we can handle.
Yeah.
So just having that sometimes, and sometimes it gets really warm. People are like, hold it, they go, it's warm. And I'm like, yeah. And so it just gives us a sense of peace and calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just, we just use it like that. And so people can just feel, it puts them at ease.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people like to, you know, play with stuff and stuff, but just to be able to hold that kind of helps you settle your wairua sometimes when you're a little bit on edge and stuff.
Yeah, I need it today.
Yeah,
I need it a lot of days.
That's why I was like, I'm going to take them in.
Yeah.
You know, just because, they normally sit in front of my, you know, computer. So so both of them, so they always keep me in check.
Yeah.
And so I'll just be working and there'll be stuff that's going on, a bit hard and stuff, and then I'll just grab it, hold it. Even some of the staff, you know, that help out, volunteer, they just grab it.
Yeah.
Now and again, and I've been taking it away with me when I go do the trainings and stuff that we're doing, and then people they're loving it.
So there's a lot of people's mauri in here.
Aye. Just whatever it is, it's just big enough it can handle it. You just chuck it in there.
Can you talk to me about the one you're holding, brother?
Yeah, bro. So this one, I don't know where I need to show this, but it says freedom on it. It's written, it's just a stone, like a river stone. And back in the day, 2003, I was living in Petone, and I was doing community work in a church at Lower Hutt Baptist, and I had no work really. And they said to me, can you do, I said, I can do some landscaping, and they needed some landscaping done. And so I was going to do these Riverstone gardens at the church. And it was this old church. And anyway, so I said, I'm ready to organise the Riverstone. So they came and delivered the Riverstone. And I was like, I'm not really a landscaper, eh? So I calculated what I thought it was. And I said, I need so many cubic metres of stones. Anyway, so they said, yeah, we're bringing it this afternoon. And this massive truck turned up. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I thought, maybe they drop it off in sections, you know? And this tipper came in and it backed right up the front steps of the church and dumped all these river stones. It was a mountain. And I'm like, holy shit, what have I done? And so anyway, I got my shovel and I worked the way through all the gardens, and I covered all the gardens, set them all up. And I looked at the pile and it was still a mountain, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I started hiding it all around the back of the church and behind bushes and stuff. And so, anyway, my mentor, he was the youth pastor there, and he came down to me, and he sat on the church steps, and he said, bro, can you grab one of those stones and bring it over to me and sit down? And I was like, bro, I'm busy. I've got to move all this, because there was a girl was getting married from the church on the weekend, and drove past the church and saw this mountain. I burst into tears, thinking that her, fairy tale wedding was going to be destroyed. Anyway, so I sat on the steps with him, and he says, I just wanted to talk to you. And he always did this sort of stuff, my bro. And he picks these moments to give you life lessons. And he said, see that stone that you're holding? I said, yeah. He said, it represents your heart, bro. And I says, hey, what are you talking about? And he goes, your heart's hard. Your heart's become hard to the things of the world, of things that you've been going through. He said, you need to smash that, because that's not who you are. Your heart's huge, and you've got heaps of love for people. And he said, but you've become hardened. And I was like, oh. I wanted to grab my shovel and whack him around the head, to be honest, at that moment. But he said, oh, while you're moving those stones, he said, have a think about that kōrero. So I just, I was hoha, but I did it. I moved all the stones, cleaned it all up, and never forgot that kōrero that he gave me. And then when I moved back from Petone, my ex-wife and I, we moved come back to Auckland in 2004 to go to Bible college. And just as I was leaving, one of the lady in the office who had organised the stones, I told her how much to organise. She put this stone into a little kite and gave it to me. And it says freedom on it. And she said she wrote it to me because she saw the journey of change that had started to happen in me. And she put a little scripture on there, and it's John 8:36, which means, when the Son sets you free, you're free indeed. And, for me, I've held on to that forever, because I do know that now, that I am free. I'm free from the stuff that held me back, the stuff that nearly took me out of life. All of that. And so I hold on to this one. It's, this one's special. The other one that I held on to, I wanted to throw at my mate, because when he gave me that word. But I think about the work that I do now and what I continue to do. And if it wasn't for him helping me reflect on that and doing some internal work on my heart, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. So that's a reminder to me every day when I look at that and I see freedom. I go, I walk in freedom now, freedom from those things that held me back.
What's the scripture again?
John 8:36. If the Son sets you free, you're free indeed.
Wow.
Yeah. So the one that you're holding was given to me by my brother Jace Nathan. He's a carver, carves pounamu. He just said, take one, bro, grab this one. And when I put that in my hand, it fitted perfectly into my hand. And I was just like, yeah. And so many of our tāne, not only our tāne, our wahine, whānau, hold that, and just whatever they're going through, yeah, it all goes in there.
It does. It actually, like you were talking earlier, it feeling warm for some, but it definitely feels like it's really warm. What's that signify?
Just wairua, I think. Connection, aroha. All of those things are huge themes to me. And so knowing that it's safe, when it's cold, it's like that hardness of heart, that cold, but there's warmth there because there's aroha in the room.
It feels real warm.
And when we're connecting, that's what we do.
Yeah, it feels like real warm. And it's also good because that camera's right there, and because I have to hold it like this.
It gives you your biceps.
That's also making me look a little bit better.
Looking sharp, bro. Looking sharp.
Bro, you're the founder of Wana.
Yep.
Which provides a safe place, right, for men and their tamariki going through domestic violence.
Yep.
So, it's amazing we've been out there, and I want to talk about that. But what led you to that point, bro? What what led you to starting Wana? Let's go back.
Yeah, sure. I guess for me it goes way back, like as a young fella. And I often tell the story, like growing up, I had an amazing childhood. I've got an amazing mother and father, beautiful. I got my sister. We grew up in this little one-bedroom house in Avondale for the first 7 years of my life. Me and my sister lived in the sunroom and in bunks. There was no front door. You had to come around the back. But I had so many good memories, and we had a beautiful, like, the community raised us, and we had so many memories. And so one part of the year we'd be at Western Springs Speedway because all my uncles and everything raced, TQs, midget sidecars, the whole works. And then the other time we were at the football club, at the club rooms, and my father was run the bar down there at the club rooms, and he was the coach of the Lindale soccer team, the ladies team. And but those were the spaces where I was introduced to violence, and not violence in the home, but violence in community, seeing fights breaking out all the time with my family. And, as kids, I remember particular this moment, and I often talk about it as a couple of my cousins, we were all on my uncle's sidecar sitting after the meeting, and we were sitting in the pits at Western Springs, and this fight breaks out between my uncle and these two guys, something obviously that happened on the track. And then I see this lady smash a bottle and like just bottle my uncle and just rip open the side of his cheek. We're kids sitting on this motorbike, the sidecar, and there was not one adult that took us away as children, and we weren't, like, I wasn't freaked out by that. Like, I'm sitting there. So the desensitization to violence as a young child was common because we saw it. I saw my dad, my uncles scrapping all the time. That's how we grew up. And, not to make it sound like it was, happened all the time, but it happened a lot. And we would see that. And we became desensitized to this violence. And then, through that time, there was moments where in life, just not long after that, as a young boy, I was sexually abused by a guy in our community. He was older, male, and what do you do with that? And I wouldn't have even know what sexual abuse was. But I knew in my puku radar, I call it my puku radar in here, that something was not right. And I felt that in my wairua, and very much everything that I do is wairua driven. And it started there, knowing what's right, what's wrong. It wasn't through lessons, wasn't through conversation. It was just what I felt in here. And then it happened again as a younger, again when we moved out south. But it happened from a female perspective at that time. And so just, this thing of, is there something wrong with me? I didn't know what was going on in my world, and I just was like, there must be something wrong with me. Why does this happen to me? Didn't talk to anybody about it because I was shit scared to tell anybody about any of that. And where do I tell? Who's going to believe me? I'm a child. I was afraid that if I told someone, my mum, my dad, if someone found out, what would happen to me? I didn't know. I just shoved it down, shove it down and carry on. And, I guess as I got older, I realised that the more you sweep under the carpet, eventually you trip up. And so I just kept shoving that stuff under the carpet. And so life happened, and there was a number of other significant events that happened through my life that kind of shaped me into the man that I am, and good and bad,
How long did the abuse go on for?
So for the second one with the wahine, that went on for about 2 years.
Jeez. And how old were you?
I would have been about 9 till 11.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And that was one of those moments where you kind of couldn't get away from it, because we were always hanging out as, families and stuff. And so it was just one of these moments where I was just like, how again, shit scared. I think about, I share this moment when I do some education around this stuff, but I remember having an old school bag. I had this old black school bag, and it was ripped, and it was going to get thrown out, and I think it did get thrown out, and I pulled it back out of the bin. And I remember I put a change of clothes in it. Only one change, I don't know. But I remember in my bedroom, I had a manhole up to get into the roof. And I used to have this bag there because I was always in fear that her father might ring my dad or something might happen. And then what if someone knew? And so I had the bag ready to go. And those are the days where the phone would ring and you'd run to the phone to pick it up, just because I just was, fight with my sister who's going to pick up the phone. But I just lived in this fear, constantly going to school, that something was going to happen. Like, I didn't know any of that. Like, I didn't know about how you get pregnant, anything like that, or any of, But in my head, I was like freaking out because I was just afraid that I would get in trouble. And even though I didn't want to do anything. And I guess the thing that I talk about as well, which I think about this, and especially for, it's for any children going through abuse, but I think about men particularly, because my body started responding, like I'm going, and so you hear this thing, guys only think with their, dicks, and you grow up with this culture of, we speak these words out into our society about our men. Oh, that's all they want. So as a male, to say that you're abused by a female, who am I going to tell? They go, oh, well, lucky you. Hey, you know what I mean? And that was the head space that I was in, because you'd hear those comments in the community, but I always wondered, like, because when my body started reacting, and I remember speaking to this lady, she's an amazing wahine, her name's Gloria, and she works for the prevention of sex trafficking in children and stuff like that. And she says, don't ever feel, that was your fault or your body respond. She said, because if you're out and it's cold, you get goosebumps, you shiver, like your body is wired to respond to the elements that are around you. It's a natural thing. It's not you're enjoying yourself. Doesn't mean to say that it's not okay, And so I always think about that, and I'm always grateful for that kōrero. That came later in life, though. But but I did wonder as a child. So going through all of that as a young fella, thinking in my head, what's wrong with me? I got into self-harm as a young kid. Like I remember in my teenage years, I'd be cutting myself and making myself look like I've got a bruise and stuff, so people would reach out to me, are you okay? That was and I didn't know at the time why I was doing it. Like, it's just because through education, and I've looked back now on my life and I've gone, that was me that was my cry for help.
What were your parents saying when this was all going down?
They just called me accident prone. They'd go, oh my God, another one. Hey, like they thought it was, because I made them look, it could have been a makeup artist for, with the workshops, right? Because I made them look so real and there was a story behind it. No one actually knew that I was just doing this and I didn't even know what self-harm was back then, but I remember doing that to myself. And so mum and dad just thought I was accident prone.
When did they find out about the abuse?
They didn't really. Like, it was, for me, that was part of the journey. For them, I never really talked about that till as an adult. I talked more to my sister about it because I felt bad for my mum and dad, I never ever wanted to make them feel stink that they didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, they were good parents. My mum, they live with me and my wife now, and our family. We all live together, and they've just been amazing parents, hardworking, and we've had our ups and downs, me and my dad, over the years, but he's solid, and I just never wanted to hurt them,
Yeah.
by telling them. And so for me, it was really, it was just one of those things. I just never wanted them to feel that it was their fault either, because it wasn't their fault at all, and but as a parent now, it makes me hyper vigilant as to why, with my own children, when their mates come over, no, leave those doors open. I'm always looking for signs. I'm just like, nah. If my wairua kind of goes off, I'm like, oh. And we talk openly with our sons. I've always talked openly with my daughters, just making sure that, whatever goes on in their world, it's okay to talk about, and they're not going to get any ramification for it, So, and that kind of, all of that stuff, shaped me into who I was. And then I got into a relationship and early on when I was 20, or no, 18, and then we got married at 20. But that relationship kind of, it was good. Like, it was everything that we thought, this is us, and it's going to be awesome. But there were just little things that started to happen in the relationship where, stuff would happen, like arguments and stuff would get thrown. And I remember, we're still dating. This is before we were, and, just throwing the car keys, and you think, there's nothing, it's just angry, throw the car keys, and they go, and I ducked, and it hits the wall, put a hole in the wall, kind of giggle, thinking, you missed, but never really looking at it as a problem. But it just continued to kind of evolve over time, and it got worse and worse. And then we got married, and then the relationship went to another level in terms of once we moved in together, and then other things got thrown, like the coffee table, the ironing board, and it would build up and build up, and then it hadn't become physical. And then I remember the day it became physical. We were driving, because we were working in church space, and you were youth group leaders and stuff. And I just remember this moment, just driving to go to youth group, and I'm driving in the car, and she's in the passenger seat, and there's an argument about something, and then all of a sudden, just this backhand, like straight across my head. And I remember driving up the curb. I remember I was in Monaco, and I drove up the curb, nearly hit the power pole, braked, got out. I said, what's going on? And that was the start where it started becoming physical. And we're in a 20-year relationship, and it just continued to kind of go from there. Really got worse and worse. Some really ugly stuff that happened in that, and it became, the hardest thing was, I think, because we were in the church world as well. You would reach out to people, youth group leaders, pastors, for help, support. And I'm not knocking anybody, because a lot of people don't actually understand how to deal with family harm. But the common response was always, just pray for her, forgive her, And I would question, that's right, because it's my problem. Like, it's something wrong with me, from what happened when I was a child. And so you'd get to that point where you're like, why is that this is not okay, but how come I'm the one that has to forgive? How come I have to? And I'm not saying that I didn't have anything to do with it. Like, I had a smart mouth. Like, I would push back at that. But there was just this continuation, and it just evolved and evolved, and it became ugly.
Yeah.
We left Auckland to try and save our marriage. Moved down there in 99 to the Wairarapa. and it got worse. I was completely isolated from my family. They were all up here, and that's when I had the bottle as my medication to numb everything that was going on, and and I used to park myself up, bro, in parks, and just drink all day, and then drive home. And I'm ashamed, and I educate police now in family harm, but I had no care when I would drive around the streets under the influence of alcohol, and I'm ashamed of that, absolutely ashamed of that. I could have killed anybody, I could have killed myself, and I regret that to this day, that was the way that I was, living my life, but I didn't know what else to do. And again, it was just that, I think about my mum, mum, they always talk about mums having like superpowers. They always know what's going on with their sons. And my mum said she always knew that something wasn't right. But again, you just don't want to tell anyone. You don't want to talk about it because it's a shame. Because you hear, in our society.
It's not often talked about. Yeah, it's if you say domestic violence, it's always men on the...
Yeah, 100%. And who am I going to tell? Because when we were down at the club rooms, if I said anything like that, oh, bro, harden up. Drink some cement, bro. Oh, smack the bitch back. That's the kōrero that we hear, we're raised with, right? We're growing up around that. And we're, that's acceptable to do that in society. But it's not. We all know that. But we just, and we take we always joke about stuff, and we all have dark humor to cope with stuff. But, like, if you ever have any cuts or anything, everyone's like, oh, what happened, bro? The missus give you a bash, laugh it, play it down. So if you're on the other side of that conversation and you're actually going through it, is it safe for you to talk about it? Are you going to get ridiculed by your mates? And that was always the fear. And then you've got that layer of society telling you that. Then I'm in a church world. And again, I'm not knocking the church world. I love that I hold on to this, but then there's that layer. You can't do this. You can't, you've got to pray. You've got to forgive. At the end of the day, we can't have advice like that when we talk to family harm. We lose too many people in our country. We've got the highest rates of death in family harm in the modern world, in the developed world, I mean. And so I think our domestic violence rates in New Zealand are shocking. And yes, our stats painted in a picture, it's male assaults, female. When you think family harm, that's what you think about. When you think family violence. But there's this hidden side of family harm. And it's our male victims. And so 20 years I stayed in that space.
Why did you stay? It's something that we often ask the woman, right?
Yep.
Why do you think you stayed?
Because I never entered a relationship to have a broken home.
So you had kids at this point too?
No, not initially. We didn't have my first daughter was born in 2004. The first year I started Bible college just down the road here at Kerry. And we lived at a women's centre for women and children, Maryvale in Mangere. And we were there to be a healthy model of what a healthy model of relationship could look like to these women.
You and your ex?
Yeah.
That must have been hard. Like, what was going through your head? Like, here you guys are meant to be this model of the marriage, the
Yep.
perfect couple, and you're going through this abuse.
It was tough, bro. And again, like, don't get me wrong. Through this life, there was some good times, right, and great things that happened, but there was a real dark side of that. And I remember this particular night. So our role, because we were studying, one of the roles was that we would lock up all the gates, and we'd come on at 9 o'clock at night and through to overnight through till 7 in the morning, and I would go and do the lockup and go around, check all the gates, make sure everyone's good. Our babies are all down asleep, and then I'd go and as I'd walk through, our wahine would be sitting there. They would be having drinking their Milos, having kōrero, laughter and stuff. And I remember one night they came, as I was walking through, they're like, bro, come sit down with us. And so I went over and sat down with them. And they must have been talking about it, because they sat me down and then they were like, bro, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm all good. What's up? They're like, nah, bro, we can hear it. We can hear what's going on. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. But they knew, because they've been through it themselves. They were the only people, and they said, oh, do you want us to deal with it? And I said, no, it's all good. But they were the first person that ever asked me if I was okay. First person, or first group of people that ever asked me, are you all right, bro? And they always would check in on me after that. You all good, bro? You all good? I was on the board of a women's refuge as well at the same time in Mangere, going through all of this, trying to keep our wahine safe. But in my own world, I was trying to keep myself safe. Trying to get up every day, because I became a pastor after that in Mangere, and so giving a message of hope to a congregation week in, week out. And sometimes I didn't have any hope myself, and that was difficult.
Yeah, that's hard.
So getting through that journey, and I was a pastor for 8 years and absolutely loved it. I loved what I was doing. I love the community. My heart is still with Mangere, and I just became pretty bad, and I got to a point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I said, oh, this is it, I'm done. And unfortunately, they didn't handle it very well. The church, they didn't know how to deal with that stuff. Originally, everyone was on board and support me, but then it just turned ugly really fast. Everyone went dark on me, and I was just like, what the fuck? Again, I remember meeting with this old retired minister that they sent round to see me. The first question he asked me, oh, did you have an affair? And I went, what? And he goes, well, there's got to be a reason why she hit you. I was like, what the Hey, and I was like, that's it. And I was like, you and I ain't going to talk anymore. You don't get it. No disrespect to him, but at the end of the day, it's that unconscious ignorance. People have this unconscious ignorance, and they say shit, and they don't actually understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the topic of what's going on. This was 2011, November. Get through Christmas, we start the new year, and again, same thing, church, back into that world, and I just keep sucking it up, shoving it down, carrying on. I got into quite a bit of a depression as well. I didn't know what to do, and I was going to take some time out. But there was an incident that happened, like a mental health incident that happened for our whānau, and so I had to just carry on again, just one of those shove it down, carry on. And I remember doing the Easter service, we used to go up the maunga in Mangere, Tapani o Matahua, and I'd done the Easter service on the Sunday, and we came down, it was Easter Monday, and I remember I got up with my daughters, and my ex was asleep still, and I had this little tradition with my girls that we'd go for a drive. So we went down to the BP and Mangere Bridge, got them a chubba chub, a tropical just juice, and a little packet of chips, and we just used to drive up all the different maunga, and I'd always take them around and we'd just drive together. And I remember coming home, setting them up in front of their little couches. They had those little fold-out couches. I don't know, it was in front of the Wiggles or probably Dora the Explorer or something. Just hugged them and told them how much I love them, and just said, you're everything to me. And put them down, set them up, and I went out to the garage. I jumped up on my workbench and I wrapped the bike tube around my neck and stepped off. And all I can remember from that moment was hearing, your daughters need their father in their life. And so I managed to get myself free. Grateful that it was a rubber tube, even though it was like, and I just fought to get myself free. Reached out to a counsellor who I met through, amazing wahine, she's a lifesaver, and said I need help. And I met her through Maryville at the Women's Centre. She was our counsellor there, and I still see her today. You know, if I need her, she's just amazing. I refer everyone to her. I remember she saying to me when we met, she said, if you don't leave, she's going to kill you. I said, oh, don't be silly. You know, like, what are you talking about? She's not going to. And she said, Dean, this is the cycle of family violence. Like, it just gets worse and worse. How did it start? And she took me down this pathway of the different things that happen. And it, like, people go, oh, that sounds a bit dramatic. And I'm like, and we don't take family violence seriously. We think, oh, it's only a verbal. It's only this, it's only that, you know. And we play it down. But in playing it down, we could actually lose someone that we love. And she was straight up and she just said, this is the reality. It wasn't pray and forgive her. It was, if you don't leave, she's going to kill you. So I started this journey of trying to get myself out of there, and we put a plan in place. July 22nd, 2012. Hardest day of my life, bro. Knowing my baby girls were going to come home from kura that day, and Papa wasn't going to be there. My daughters, I adored them. They were everything to me. I still do. They are everything. But again, it was that mindset of, oh, I've got to leave because I'm the male. Because society always says, oh, you know, children are best left with mum. Their mum struggled. She had her own journey. So she was going through her own stuff as well. You know, she may not have been the best person for them to stay with. But in my head, I was like, I've got to go. And so I made that decision to go. And it was so hard.
Yeah.
Because as I said to you, I never wanted to enter, I didn't want a broken home for my daughters. I never wanted that to be, you know, any of that for them. I'd done all this research. When do you leave? You know, do you leave when they're young, or do you wait till they're adults? Or I was like, it's never a good time.
Yeah.
It's never a good time. And I moved back to my parents. I was lucky I was able to go somewhere. Looked for help, but everything was for women and children. There was nothing for men. There was nothing out there for men. So tried to just navigate life as best I could. Got back into mahi. Always wanted to serve community because that's all I wanted to do. Never wanted to leave the church. Church stood me down. Said I got to, you know, church wouldn't, you know, want to minister the broken home, you know. So I was like, yeah, whatever. The congregation didn't want me to leave, but the leadership said, you got to go. We'll stand you down and hopefully you guys can reconcile. I was like, I'm not reconciling. I'm not going back. I'm done. And it was hard because my daughters were so young that, although, you know, I think about 7 and 9, they can't articulate what's going on for them. And then, you know, when I think about my childhood and go, I thought I was the problem, I never wanted them to think that they were the problem because it was nothing to do with them. It's never anything to do with them. I just wanted to break all the stereotypes because I was sick and tired of hearing society say that our men were a fatherless generation and our men needed to, you know, where are all our men? And so I used to go to every appointment. I'd show up at every single appointment for my babies, from the scans, never missed. I'd want to be there because I wanted to flip the script. I'd go to some of those appointments and some of those nurses would completely ignore me in the room. You know, we wonder why our men don't show up. You know, it's just like, we've got to change the narrative. Yes, there's been some men that have been dicks, but not all men are dicks. There's some great dads out there, some great men out there that are trying to struggle through life, struggling to figure out what to do, because we don't like to ask for help. You know, we've got this ego sometimes as men that we got to, you know. And so I remember coming out of there and navigating my way out. Eventually I got into my own little place, and I never forget, there was one particular night, my youngest little one, because I didn't think I always hoped that when all the incidents used to happen, and I would just, after an incident would happen, generally they were in bed, and it would happen in the evening, it happened at night, and then I would take off in the car. I'd just get out of the house, and I'd just go straight to find a bottle store. I knew every bottle store in Auckland, bro.
Yeah.
And how late they were open till.
Yeah.
So if it happened, I knew where I could go. I'd just go anywhere to just drink and numb the pain. Again, driving around, it was just awful. It happened all the time. And then I'd turn up to Bible college to try and, you know, and I'd become a pastor. I would leave the church office, bro. I would go to the bottle store and I would drink some scull a box of Smirnoffs to get before I went home.
It's crazy.
Because to numb, I didn't know what I was walking into. I'm ashamed of that. But that's the only way I knew to cope.
And when did you meet Jenny May?
So at the end of my counselling, bro. Yeah. So the funny thing was, so I go to my session, and I work for this youth trust in Mangere, Genesis, and I remember, and it was my farewell, and it was so on the Tuesday at counselling, my counsellor, she goes to me, bro, you're ready now. And I said, choice, ready for what? And she said, you're ready to meet somebody. And I'm like, oh, hell no. You know, like, I'm just, because the girls used to ask me, Dad, are you going to get another girlfriend? And I'm like, no. I said, the only thing, if I ever meet anyone, they've got to love you like I love you. So that bar is pretty high. So they've got to be pretty special. And so this was the Tuesday. And on the Thursday, it was just before Waitangi weekend. And it was my farewell. And you know those farewells, and you go, yeah, we're going to meet in town, and they're, we'll go home and get changed, and then they go home, and then I get all the texts, oh, sorry, bro, I can't come out, hey, oh, sorry, I've got to stay here with the kids.
Yeah.
So it was just me and my mate James, and he was like, yeah, he me and him, you know, ride or die together, me and James, and so we headed into town, and I went to this bar in town, and because it had dartboard in there, I just knew they had dartboard. Anyway, the dartboard wasn't to play; it was just for show. Yeah, and that's what happens on Ponsonby Road. It's all for looks, bro. Hey, not the actual. Let's play it. And so I remember we got in there, and we were sitting down having a few drinks, and he didn't drink. I was drinking, and he's going to drive for us. And then we were sitting there, and everyone had kind of done the cancelling thing, and then so what my counsellor said to me, she goes, you ready to meet someone? I said, no. And she goes, yes, you are. She's going to walk through the door. You're going to know it's her. She's Māori. She's 5'8" or whatever, something like that. And I'm like, oh, you're nuts. Bro. You're completely insane. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, no, trust me. I'm like, yeah, whatever. She goes, as soon as she walks through the door, you're going to know it's her. I'm like, whatever. I thought, I used to like you. I think you're gone weird now. Hey, you know, and we're having a good joke. That was the Tuesday. On the Thursday, we're at this bar, and we're sitting there. Worst part about it was there was this other Māori wahine that I knew that I worked along, and she kind of liked me. And everyone used to tease me about her. And she messaged, she said, bro, I'm coming for a drink. And I went, oh, no, please. Anyway, she was there, and luckily for her, she kept us there longer because we were going to leave. And then the door opened, the lights shone above her head, and in she walked. And I didn't know who it was. It was only a small bar in town. But I remember she walked in the door, and I knew, like on my way to her, I was like, holy shit. And my bro goes, bro, there's your girl. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm sitting there doing these fake kind of look behind me once, just so I could look at her. And she was on our bench. And she obviously noticed what I was doing, and she had some of her other colleagues alongside her. And I must have looked like an egg. Anyway, she's grabbed her glass and she leans over and she goes, cheers. And I'm like, oh, shit. And my beer was empty. And I was like, oh, shit. So I cheers to her. I go, cheers. She goes, better go fill that up. So I went and filled it up and we got her a beer and we sat down and we talked. And then slowly her friends kept dropping off. I'm like, oh, no, she's going to go. And I didn't have the confidence to ask her for a number or anything. But we talked. We talked till the sun came up. Wow. And we went to other bars and stuff, and my bro was still walking with us. He was the last one. We went and had a feed on Great North Road at McDonald's, and she said, you're pretty lucky because I don't normally share my fries with anyone. And she shared their fries with me. And then we went to go back to her mate's place where her car was, and my bro said, and she said, I'll drop Dean back, you know. And he goes, no, it's all right. He goes, and then he's talking to me on the side. He goes, bro, nah, these celebrities, bro, you know, they get what they want, you know, like, that's not supposed to be like this. And I'm like, it's all good, bro. I've got this, you know. But he was just protecting me because he knew the journey that I've been through. He didn't want me to get hurt. But I knew. And we just talked till the sun came up. 9 days later, bro, I asked her to marry me.
9 days?
9 days, bro. We talked about it. And we talked about it, and I said, it's going to cost me a bit to put a ring on your finger. And she's like, I'd be happy with a bread tie. So that's what I did, bro. I got a bread tie, you know, those wire ones, and I just wound it up, made it into a ring. Still got it at home. Gave it to her one day after work, took it down to the beach, and she's living in Koimarama. And I remember she was tired, and she was hoha. I was like, oh, you want to walk down to the beach? She goes, nah. And I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, it just went down there, and then anyway, I walked down to the beach going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I came back, I said, will you marry me? And she's like, yep. Didn't hesitate.
Wow.
Because we've both been there before, and we were like, we're getting old and older, you know, we're in our 40s, early 40s, and I was just about to turn 40. And yeah, bro, and then 9 months later, we were married. And, you know, for me, the funny part about the story as well is that 3 weeks before the counsellor said what she said, one day I dropped my girls home to their mum and came back to mum and dad's, and I was having a beer with dad and we were watching the sports news, and my mum goes, son, that Jenny Mae coffin should be a good catch for you, son. I'm like, oh, shut up. And she's like, seriously, son. She goes, I read it in the magazine. She's 40, she's single, she's a gutsy woman, she'd be perfect for you. I was like, how the hell am I going to meet someone like that? Crazy story. And that night, I text my mum, guess who I'm with? She goes, oh, shut up, because I always tease my mum. She's like, whatever. And rest is history. And, you know, I think when we talk about finding someone, like I said to my daughters, she's done that.
Yeah.
She's loved on my girls from day one, like her own. She calls them her big girls.
How long have you been married to Jenny Mae now?
10 years.
What does she mean to you?
Oh, she's everything, bro. Everything. She's just a person that we're very different, but we complement one another really well. I think she would say that my heart is, you know, I've brought a lot of that openness, and, you know, she often gets talked about the person that cries a lot. And she said, and a lot of it's to do with some of the ways that I've kind of worked with her, but she has given me the confidence and the courage to do what I do. So starting Wana, that's where, you know, she just was like, believed in me. Like, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't all plain sailing and roses, but she's always give it a go for it, like the confidence that she puts in me, because she's just this, she's got this attitude of can do anything like that you put your mind to, and I was probably lacked the confidence to do that. She's given me so much, bro, and I'll be forever grateful for that. She's spoken life into me, and we've had to navigate courageous conversations. Communication's been awesome. Like, that's been the thing, like, for me, coming from always second guessing what I would have to say because I didn't want the negative outcome to happen. So when we would have to have a conversation, Jenny May and I would open up a conversation and have to have these tough conversations. And I was always had this little fear that there might be a reaction like I used to get. And sometimes it would be, it took a little bit for her, like, and I've learnt because of the way that she needs to process stuff. And so that was hard, but the more we practice that, the better we get at it. Yeah. And so we're pretty good now. We can talk about anything and raise some really tough stuff with each other, and do it in a way that's mana enhancing. It's not like tearing each other down. It's how do we grow together? And so we're pretty comfortable to have that conversation and stuff. So that's awesome. And that's where she's just been a huge support, of mine, and as I am of her. I was the stay-home dad for 18 months when our twins were born, and she was kind of freaking out being a mum, and so I was a stay-home dad for 18 months with the twins, and then and navigating our blended family, and so that was tough. But when it started to time for me to get back in the workplace, she was really supportive of that. And when I wanted to start Wana,
talk to us about Wana, bro. So I visited the house.
So for me, that was where Wana came about. So I remember working at the marae, and I remember one of my colleagues and I were looking for something to help for our tāne, and there was just nothing. And you look up some of these services like around family violence, and it says for women and children all the time. And he goes, bro, you just need to start something. And I said, yeah. And I had it bubbling away inside of me, this idea that I'd start a refuge for our men.
Yeah.
And I looked into it, and there was nothing in the country, nothing, never. There's places for men to go on their own, but not to take your children. And so I had this idea. I said to my wife, I've got an idea. I've got lots of ideas, a dreamer, a visionary, and I was like, I've got this idea. I've got to start this. She goes, oh, yeah. And I said, I've seen a property in Takahanani. And she said, oh, yeah, go and have a look. And so I went and had a look at it. And this was on the Friday. Oh, no, I saw it on the Friday, and then the open home was on the Saturday. So I went on the Saturday. And when I went through it, the auction was on the Monday. I was like, oh, crap, I haven't got any time to get any financials together. So I said to her, I really want to buy this and see if we can get it against our house. And she goes, how are you going to pay for it? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Faith.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was the thing. Like that was that thing that it was going to happen. I went to the auction, drove in. I couldn't compete in the auction because I didn't have any of the paperwork done. So I just had to hope that it didn't sell. Went to just not far from here. We went down and it didn't sell. And then the lady said, oh, it's your turn now. So I was like, oh, put an offer in. So I put an offer in. And they presented all the offers to the owner. And then they said, oh, we want to work with this guy, which was me.
Yeah.
And so we negotiated, and subject to finance, I was like, I got nothing to lose. I'd rung my mortgage broker on the way and said, hey, how much could I, roughly, if I was to buy a property, how much could I go to? And so I knew everything, exactly what he said is what I got the place for.
Wow.
And, and for my wife, she, in that moment, she was like, oh, I've got to keep working, because she didn't want to carry on working. She wanted to stay home. But just to get it off the ground, she goes, I'll just commit to it, to support it. And yeah, so I started. I didn't even know how to start a charity, what I have to do. I hadn't done any of that yet. And so I started doing that, had the property, kept it going, and started working on Wana. And Wana means to be reinvigorated, to come back to life.
And what are the services that you offer there, bro?
And so we have our 2 units, which are our male refuge. So men and their tamariki can go. And then in the front place, we have programs that we run. So do drug and alcohol counselling and stuff like that. We've got a little one-on-one space where we can do some counselling for our men too, and just provide wraparound support, life skill stuff. Like, I don't want to kind of there's a lot of services already doing some of that stuff. So I've written a program which is, for me, because I've worked in community for so many years, there's a lot of good programs out there, but I also go, they kind of like, it's almost like that's the Band-Aid stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look back on my own journey, if you're going to weed the garden, bro, you got to get it out at the roots. Otherwise, that shit's going to keep coming back. So I've written a program, and that can be run either as a wānanga or weekly program to actually address the root. For me, that's where I want to focus, to try and actually, let's get to the root cause. And then once you know why you need these other programs, then tap that in to add value to you.
Yeah.
But let's get to the core real quick. And I can go deep really quickly with people. Like,
You have that lived experience as well.
totally. And so that's what we do. And so it's the first in the country. Again, we're very lucky. I've only just got some funding. Initially, we were just...
Well, when I met you,
we had it, bro.
nothing.
And so I'd be given a koha from the refuge that I was on the board of. They were shutting down, and then they heard about us, and they gave us our koha, which kept us going. And it was, the board used to say to me, we need to have a conversation at the next board meeting where they were going to shut down. And I'd just be like breaking my heart going, this is it for me. This is the legacy I'm leaving behind for my babies. This is the legacy I'm leaving behind for the Aotearoa, for our male victims, our male survivors of family harm. And there was no way I was going to quit. And I would fight. And so I just kept grinding, trying to hustle. And then a good mate of mine, Kelly, she was working with a funder because she's got a charitable trust too. And she said, you need to go see these fellas. Yeah. And so they came and saw me. They're from Wellington. And they hit me up. And they actually, their trust funded the first women's refuge in New Zealand.
Wow.
And when they heard about that, that was the legacy, part of why they started funding stuff. And so they said, we have to fund the first men's one.
Who's it?
J.R. McKinsey.
Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Good. They're supporters of ours too.
Yeah, and so they came on board.
That's so
funding
cool.
me for salary for a couple of years, and you know, part salary and some look at some system change stuff, because there's some stuff that, some biases in our system that don't help our men.
Yeah.
And
so
I find it really, you know, again, for me, it's not a us against them. It's like, you know, for me, I go, this is, when you talk about family violence, it's whānau, right? It's not, it's males are the problem, it's females are the no, this is a whānau problem.
Yeah.
So I'm not into a tit for tat, you know. I'm like, what's happening to our wahine should never happen to our wahine. No one should ever touch our wahine.
Yeah.
You know, full stop. And physically, psychologically, emotionally, whatever, shouldn't happen. Sexually, and that shouldn't happen. But also, same should go for our tāne too, that are going through it on the other end.
What would you say to you, you know, back at when you were in those tough times in that first relationship?
I see you.
Yeah.
I see your pain. I see your hurt. We'll get through it together. One step at a time. You don't actually have to carry it on your own. I'm with you. I believe you. It's okay.
That's powerful, bro. And I think that's a message for every tāne out there or anyone going through tough times, eh?
Yeah, 100%.
Last question, brother, I ask everyone that comes on. What's your why?
It's my daughters, really. I mean, it's my whānau in total. But I never wanted my daughters to ever grow up in that world. I'm so grateful that my sons have never experienced what they've had to experience. I'm so proud of my girls, and I look at them today, and they're both resilient. They've both got their own strengths. And I remember when the iwi opened up, Ngātai Tāmaki opened up our building, and they got my big girl to open. And we opened the door of Wana 12 years to the day that I wasn't there when they came home from kura. And so when I talk wairua, that was like full circle. And they keep me, they're the reason why I'm alive.
Yeah.
I think back to that moment in 2012 when I nearly took my life. If I'd have done that, Wana wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have met Jenny May. I wouldn't see my beautiful sons, my twins. I wouldn't be able to celebrate my daughter's graduation and my other daughter's 21st. I've got so much to be grateful for. And it's the other ones that I do this and I raise awareness. And it's difficult to talk about this stuff because I never want to whakaiti on their mana or any of their, because that's their story as well. I tell my truth to help others tell theirs. And that's what my mentor always said to me. By telling your story gives permission for others to tell theirs. My daughters will have their own story. My ex will have her own story. And so if I can continue to do what I do, keeping them in the forefront of what I do, we'll do okay.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing. That's what this platform's about, bro, sharing so that you can let others know, going through those same times, the same tough times that they can get through and that we see them. Yeah. Thank you, my brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for the support. It really does mean so much to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and comment on our videos and share this out. These stories are so inspiring and they need to be heard by everyone. Thank you so much, team.